As a surf coach over the years, I've seen surfers fall into two problematic categories that we need to fix in order to step up our surfing and get to that next stage. What we'll speak about today, we can see in spades from surfers like Ethan Ewing, but we don't have to be able to surf like him in order to put this lesson into practice today. This is genuinely something that I think can be fairly transformative for our surfing, for the better, and we're going to use in-water and on-land examples, as well as drills that you can use to give you the tools to surf the wave and avoid the biggest inefficiencies and getting stuck with not having enough speed, being in poor spots on the wave face that completely stop your ability to get the maneuvers that you want happening. And if you are new here, my name's Considine and I'm a professional longboarder, a surf coach, as well as a physiotherapist. And I created a platform called longboardsessions.com to help surfers experience the absolute best in their surfing. And today I'm here to hopefully help you with your surfing no matter where you're at. If you do find the video useful and you find it helpful, then please feel free to subscribe, as well as share it with anyone else who you feel might get something from it. But let's get straight into the edit. Alright, so this video is going to be for two types of surfers that fall into two different types of categories that as a coach I see a lot of one or the other. The first one is the beginner surfers who are getting sorted with how to stand up and how to actually start surfing with a bit of control. Now, quite often in the beginner category, we tend to fall into one of two buckets, and these are the same buckets that I see even intermediate surfers still getting stuck in. So even though it might sound fairly basic, it's actually a really, really big deal for anyone who is looking to improve. The first bucket is the surfer who stands up too tall. Now, this surfer, you'll see as they first pop up, they straighten up right away, they're locked out, their legs are straight, their chest is tall, and they come into a really rigid, tall position. The issue with this is there's no shock absorption, and when we lock the legs out like this by straightening the legs so much, it means that the wave is doing what it wants and you can't really adapt or can't respond to the wave properly, and your ability to do turns, to generate speed, to hold a line, all becomes compromised. And then for the second bucket, or the second type of surfer, is the one who's stuck surfing too low. Now, this is less common in the very beginners, but is more common as people start to learn to compress, but then they end up overdoing it. They've probably heard something along the lines of staying low keeps you balanced, which can of course be true, but these surfers are crouched right down, chest is still facing down with their chest facing towards the board, their knees are in a deep squat and they kind of get stuck there the whole time. And it's essentially the opposite problem, but it is still a problem because now, instead of being too rigid and upright, you're locked into this really deep position where you can't extend, you can't recoil, and your ability to adapt is pretty limited as well. So these are the two key problems, too tall or too low. But before we find a solution to this, it is really important to state that getting tall and extended, as well as getting low and compressed, are crucial elements of our surfing. We want to be able to extend out of turns, and we want to be able to compress to absorb forces, coil up for turns, and stay balanced. So the error here isn't in the positions in and of themselves, but it's the inability to be adaptable if these are our default postures and positions. What we need instead is a default position which will allow for both extension and compression, and the answer to that today is going to be how to find that middle ground. That neutral stance that gives us the ability to move up, to move down, to adapt, generate power, and all of that. Now, the reason I say this is going to help beginner surfers is because your natural instinct when you're first popping up, for example, is to try and stabilize, and that will stiffen the legs right up. And this isn't just for beginners, but for anyone actually trying anything new, especially new maneuvers. When you're unsure, your body wants to protect itself and it comes into a brace position. This means that your legs will lock up and stiffen and your surfing will definitely feel the consequences. It's just a really, really common natural response. It also affects lots of longboarders and people surfing longboards in general because there's this thing, and this is something I see a lot of, where we try and mimic the really casual, upright style that we see a lot of great longboarders having, which is super stylish and effortless and it's a nice upright look. But what actually ends up happening is we're mimicking someone with many, many years of experience, and I can tell you they probably didn't learn that way. It's a style element that they have probably added in over time. And for yourself, you may go too narrow and too upright and it just becomes inefficient again. So you're not actually surfing reactively or with flow, and you could just be all of a sudden getting stuck. Now, very quickly, if you are looking for the most efficient way to progress, to ensure that you're working on the right thing and the right elements at the right time to improve the fastest that you can, and then feel feel free to check out our surf progression platform, longboardsessions.com, where you can utilize the free surfer progression maps to take you through exactly the things you need to do and master in order from your first wave all the way through to the very advanced levels of surfing. And the membership and community are also there if you're wanting to take a much deeper dive and get more access. If we take a look at a surfer like Ethan Ewing, this guy's a perfect example for what we're talking about here. His surfing is super smooth and super buttery, and if you slow it down, it's not just because he's bending his knees, which by the way is a very oversimplified cue in my opinion. I hear people say just bend your knees, but in my opinion there is a lot missing from that instruction. For example, how much do we bend the knees? Do we hold the bend? When should we come out of the bending of the knees? And this is something that I wanted to help guide you guys through today as well. So let's get into it. When should you be low? When should you be tall? And how do we find that sweet spot in between? So let's start from ground zero. What should your basic stance actually look like? Now, the first thing we're going to talk about here is our foot position. You want your front foot to be at a roughly 45-degree angle on the board, not completely sideways like a skateboard, but also not completely straight forward. This gives you the balance to use both legs and adjust your weight properly. Now, if you've seen the video I did last week on this channel, we go deep into that one, so that might be an idea to check out if you're wanting to go a little bit further into this. It's something I'd recommend. But from there, we want the chest to be upright, not arched too much, and definitely not leaning over like you're grabbing to reach something, just upright. And your arms, nice and simply, should just be in a fairly neutral position, one hand over either side of the rail to allow the chest to square up to face where you're going. This is key because the moment your chest starts tipping forward, we start to bend from the hips and not the knees, and that's where a lot of our problems arise. Now, let's talk the knees, and this is a big one. I like to say a nice bend in the knees, and I say nice very deliberately because if I say a slight bend or a subtle bend, then all the too tall surfers end up standing up too tall and barely get any knee bend. But if I say deep squat, then the too low surfers will go too far that way as well. So a nice soft knee bend, realistically around 30 degrees kind of knee flexion, is exactly what we're after, so that we're coiled and loaded up, but not cramped. And finally, your eyes. Simply put, your eyes just need to be looking up and looking forwards, looking to where you want to go. This helps the chest to stay upright and just gives you that readiness to respond to what the wave's doing. Now, a practical way to check this is I'd recommend filming yourself doing this stance on land. Just set up a camera and stand there in what you think is your surfing stance, and then watch this video back and try to match what you're seeing that I'm doing here. Because how it feels is often a lot different to how it looks, which is a problem. And this is a massive thing that you want to know exactly what you actually look like so you can recreate it in the water. Don't just trust the feeling. Then once you're surfing, get some footage if you can, even if it's just a clip on an iPhone, and watch it back and compare to your on-land stance. Are you in a neutral position? Or are you defaulting to standing too tall or crouching too low? Are there times or positions on the wave where you do lose that neutral position and you don't end up coming back to it? Once you're aware of it, you can actually start to fix these problems. Now, how do we actually use this neutral position to improve your surfing? Firstly, the most obvious, this neutral position gives us a lot of adaptability. We've already said that this is the bridge between compression and extension, and that really is the key to surfing. It's not about being low or being tall, but it's about being able to move between these states quickly, efficiently, and everything at the right time. If we use one of the most important examples here, let's say the board is descending down the wave, you're dropping down the wave face, and if you're standing tall with your legs locked out, you pretty much can't do anything. You've got no more room to extend, and you're basically just falling with the board, and maybe try and lean in to do a bit of a bottom turn, but it's super unsteady and unstable because your body is really, really straight and not able to be coiled up. Now, let's take the same situation, but now we're thinking about being too low. You're already crouched as the board drops and you've got no more room to coil more, and you're too compressed, and even if we're wanting to release ourselves out of this super crouched position for a bottom turn, we end up getting stuck because to come out of such a wound up position where we're so low needs a lot of speed and a lot of room, which for the majority of waves that we're surfing at this level in our surfing, that being the beginner to intermediate levels, we won't be carrying that amount of speed down the line. But in that neutral position, knees bent, chest is upright, now you've got both options. You can absorb the drop by compressing further if you need to, or you can use that stored energy to extend and drive, and now you've got both ends of the spectrum available to you and you're ready for whatever the wave really requires from you. Another benefit is that you can actually subtly now transfer weight from your front foot to your back foot, And this is a massive added bonus and is one of the core reasons that we actually get stuck bogging rail or taking a line that we didn't want to with the too tall or too low scenarios. With straight legs, any weight shift becomes a lot of a all or nothing principle. It's really jerky, and with soft knees though, you can smoothly apply pressure one foot, so from the front foot to gain speed, or roll onto the back foot to turn, and that subtlety is just what gives this a lot of really nice control. And it also allows for proper rail engagement. So when your stance is reactive and balanced, you can shift from rail to rail cleanly. You're not overloading one rail or bogging or falling off because you couldn't adapt quickly enough. And it makes your surfing look and feel way, way better as well, which is a nice added bonus because when you watch the great surfers, the transitions are clean and fluid. Like if you see someone who is dancing and hasn't memorized the steps, often this guy, they're rigidly moving between different movements and they can't be present in the moment because they're bracing for what's coming next. But by being in this neutral position, it helps us to be adaptable and helps us to be present and able to ride with and fit around what the wave is telling us. And that comes from being in the right position to move through transitions, not just land in them, and by being able to react to subtle shifts from compression to extension and not getting caught by these little changes to the position or pace of the wave. And this really does make all the difference. So I hope that was really helpful. If you did have any questions about it, then make sure you leave those in the comments below. Up on the screen here somewhere, we're gonna have a video that will actually show you the correct foot positioning, that video that I mentioned before. So I highly recommend you check that out if that's something that you're interested in. But other than that, we'll leave that there for today and we'll catch you on the next one.